YCS Vancouver is in just 3.5 months, and I'm going to try to get a top with Dark Magician. Over the course of these next few months, join me on this progression and my journey to make Dark Magician as competitive as possible. Deep dive with me into my thoughts, theories, and let's craft the most optimal list for the 2023 format, ultimately leading me to the ultimate prize of a YCS top with my favorite deck. Hello you beautiful people, as you heard me a few seconds ago, I'm going to do everything I can to top a YCS with Dark Magician. Now, this is going to be the first of many videos, and in this video specifically, I'm going to try to run you guys through a list that I'm going to be kind of working with as a startup point, and we're going to progress over these next few months, theorize and craft the most optimal list for competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! With Dark Magician. Before getting into the deck profile, what I want to do is I want to encourage those watching to keep this list with an open mind. I promise you, every card choice, every ratio I'm playing them at, it's for the benefit of the deck. Now, without further ado, we're going to start with the one copy of Dark Magician. Now, that's initially a red flag for most lists, but I promise you, DM is the most utilized card in the deck, even at 1. You're always recycling it from the banish pile. You're always summoning it back from the grave. You're always searching it from the deck. It's always on the field. And at 1, I've never missed it. Sure, you'll have your situations where it gets banished. Face down, you can't really do anything about it. But I promise you, try this card at 1. It's so accessible, even at 1. And through everything the deck stands for, it's still the worst card in the deck. It's a level 7 vanilla that does nothing. So trust me, play it at 1. You won't miss the second one. And then the card that replaced it is the DMG. Now, this is where you would play your 2 Dark Magicians. However, Soul Servant is so important in this list that the 1 DM and the 1 DMG, having the ability to do the Pot of Greed every single turn is so nice in this list because you're constantly replenishing your assets. And in doing so, it can put you so far ahead in the game. Next, we're going to play the 3 copies of Illusion of Chaos. Everyone kind of knows what this card does. Next, we're going to play the best card in the deck, Magician Souls, followed by 2 Magician's Rod. The reason for 2 is that if you play 3, 2 copies of Rod is always glued to my hand. I hate seeing this card at 2 in my hand. And when I put it to 2, I always saw 1 if I needed it. If you need it, you can get it. If you don't, it's whatever. The DM spell count is so limited. It's so much smaller than it normally is that 2 is all you need. You get the 1 card you need. In most cases, it's Soul Servant, and off you go. And then to round off the DM lineup, we're playing the 1 Timaeus the United Dragon. As bad as this card is, it's so necessary in this list because it facilitates a lot of your combos. It's so easily searchable. And it ultimately gets you into your boss monster. So that's it for the Dark Magician lineup. It's pretty standard from that part. Next, I'm going to go into the limited DM spells. We are going to play 3 copies of Soul Servant and the 1 copy of Secrets. That's all you need. And this is the part of the list that's going to anger a lot of people. Stop playing the deck like it was played in 2017. Look, throughout the years, DM players, we've cut, if you were playing Thousand Knives, you shouldn't be playing Thousand Knives, but we've cut cards like Illusion Magic. We've cut, a lot of decks cut Apprentice Illusion Magician, and that card at one point was irreplaceable in the list. We cut Magician of Black Illusion, or Dark Illusion, I'm not sure which one it was. You know, the one that summons DM if you trigger a trap card. Our best trap card was Magician's Navigation at one point, and we ended up cutting that. I think a lot of DM players are so fixated on Eternal Soul and Dark Magical Circle that it seriously limits their approach and their theories to different varieties of decks. I promise you, the sooner we as a community, as a collective, move on from those cards, the better. And I think in this list, I opted to go for these 4 spell cards, and it's been a revelation for me. And I can't wait to continue playing this list and experimenting with more ways to utilize the engine in its tighter form. Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, for as long as Konami is going to let it thrive in the game, is going to be DM's best boss monster. I do think the best way to summon it is with Red Eyes Fusion because it's the easiest. It's 1 card to summon it. It requires no discards and it only loses to Ash. That being said, I will always opt to play the 2 Albazes and the 3 copies of Branded Fusion. Reason being is branded as a deck. I love. It's what I play in my quote unquote off time when I'm not playing DM. So it's an engine I'm incredibly comfortable with, and that's why I always opt to play it. But in addition to this, it opens avenues where we can play Blazing Cartesia the Virtuous along with the 3 copies of Fusion Deployment. Now, the interesting thing about this entire package is that deployment is a pseudo souls. Deployment allows you to get your DMG, your DM onto the field and allows your fusion plays to be facilitated. Cartesia, on the other hand, is literally built like a better version of Timaeus, right? It's a poly on legs and it's a quick effect. And what Cartesia allows you to do is go into other DM fusions like Dark Magician or Grand Guignol, which facilitates these next 4 cards that I'm about to show you right now. And that's your 3 copies of Duality, right? And your 1 Shaddoll Schism. Yes, Shaddoll Schism is a very interesting niche in this deck. And the reason being is its inspiration came from the Gimmick Puppet lock, right? I think Dragoon with El Shaddoll Window is so unbelievably strong. And in a sense, these 2 cards get you Dragoon and Winda, and that's why it's so unbelievably effective. Now that the branding engine is taken care of, the next engine I want to focus on is a really interesting one, especially going second. We're going to play the 3 Bestial Magnamuts and the 2 Druiswarm. Originally what I was playing 3 Mags and then 1 of each of the other names, simply because they were searchable. But I think the other 2, Buldrake and Druiswarm, Buldrake and Saronir, they're so niche in kind of what they do, especially Saronir. Saronir has kind of no purpose in this deck. Prior to this, I played a lot of Bestial DM, and what I kept finding was Druiswarm as a form of removal and Magnuma as a way to constantly replenish assets and resource management is actually all you need in this deck. And I think that this package might be explored a little bit further with Branded Beast and Branded Regain along with the Bestial Lubellion. It's something I've played with before. It's something that I'm definitely going to experiment with going forward, because I genuinely think the Bestials are so strong, and I think that their ceiling in this list can be exceptionally high. I played a lot of Bestials and DM together in peak tier format, and it honestly dominated so many of my matchups. So I can't wait to continue to experiment with these cards in particular. And yeah, that's all I have for the Bestials. Next, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go look into the cards that are going to win our games going second. So the reason I don't opt for hand traps is mainly because I don't think the deck can afford 1-for-1 interactions. What I like to do is, especially recently, is let my opponent play their turn and hit them with blowout cards. Your Dark Ruler No Remorse and your Evenly Matches. I think these cards are so crazy strong in this format, because you have a lot of combo decks. You have players who are establishing unbelievable boards. Like every runic variant, their board is so crazy, and Evenly Match kind of blows it out of the water. Same with Labyrinth, right? Evenly Match kind of solos those control style matchups, whereas Dark Ruler No More solos those combo decks. And I think more so than hand traps are able to slow down your opponent. However, I don't think DM has enough gas to take advantage of your opponent slowing down their game state. So rather than slowing down your opponent's game state, why not just completely nullify their end board? And I think these cards do that exceptionally well, and I can't wait to experiment with them further. I think that's all you need. The deck is a hard 40, and I think this is an exceptional way to on where the deck should start for this progression. Now, the extra deck isn't anything crazy. We are playing the 1 copy of Dark Magicians because this card's so accessible now with Cartesia. Then we're playing the 2 copies of Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. A question I keep getting asked is, why am I not playing Dark Magician the Dragon Knight? The reason being is that in this list specifically, there's no spells and traps to protect. So why do you care if you have Dragonite to protect your spells and traps? Plus, it's only as effective as having Eternal Soul locking, like having a Eternal Soul creating an invincible monster, right? Because Dragonite protects Eternal Soul protects it, and it's so incredibly hard to out. However, with no spells and traps and the cutting of Eternal Soul and Circle, there's no need for it. 2 Dragoons is enough, 1 Dark Magician. It's the only DM monsters you're going into. And the cards that facilitate everything is that branded engine, right? The 1 Albion, the 1 Lubellion, the 1 Mirror Jade. Originally, I was playing the 2 Lubellions. However, with Sanctifier coming out, this card is so bonkers in this list, right? If Dragoon ever gets outage, Sanctifier just brings it back. And sure, you don't have the pop, but it's a monster reborn. So that's absolutely incredible. And lastly, the Grand Guignol, right? So Grand Guignol, having Cartesia and Grand Guignol gives you access to your Shaddoll Apkallone and then your window lock, right? And your window lock is so strong, especially with Dragoon, because this is actually inspired off Gimmick Puppet, and only giving your opponent access to 1 special summon is so effective, especially when you have Dragoon protecting your window from any sort of removal. And the only way it applies so much pressure to your opponent, it forces your opponent to deal with Winda before they can deal with any part of your board, and they have to waste resources to out that Winda, right? So what it does is it kind of puts you ahead in card advantage while maintaining significant pressure, and I think that's why it's so effective. To round off the extra deck, we're actually just playing 3 links because a card like Baguska is so scary. So we play the 1 Dark, the 1 Selene, and the 1 Access Code. Sure, there's contradictions with the branded engine, but I only really go into these cards in really late games or turn like 2 after I use my branded combos, turn 1 to set up my board. Say they out it and you have a little bit of follow-up, you go into Dark, Selene, Access Code. Remember, they've wasted resources to break your board, so I think this is kind of enough for game. As far as the side deck goes, I'm going to go into that in a later video closer to locals, kind of justifying what I'm going to be teching into the current format and its matchups. One thing that I'm for sure going to be teching is the Secret Villages. I think those cards are going to be really incredible. And one thing that I do want to experiment with in the future, this is no longer part of the deck list, but one thing I do want to experiment in the future is the 3 copies of Shadow's Light and the 1 copy of Jowgen. So this is another alternative to Winda if Winda doesn't work out. Shadow's Light and Rod gives you Jowgen at the end of your combo and a draw 1. And I think Jowgen is kind of sauce in this format, especially when you have so many cards that special summon from like spells and traps, right? Like branded outside of that Lubra normal summon. It's tough for them to beat Jowgen, especially if you have a deck that like opens 5 spells. It's tough to out this card. So I think that's going to be super interesting to play with. I can't wait to play with Shadow's Light. Can't wait to play with Duality. So in future videos, look forward to me continuing to test this deck. Hopefully soon I'm going to be taking you guys to locals and you guys can see me play the deck live. Thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a wonderful night.